want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it cling clong. Every song I write, hit song. Every song I write, hit song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see, what a sight to see. What a colossal, working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on, it's right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even then, no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Never wanna see you fly. Never want you touch the sky. Never, never, never. Reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you on tour. Them no want you get more. So get more, show them. You not afraid them. Go and load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it cling clong. Every song I write, hit song. Every song I write, hit song. Tell me something, am I wrong? To believe in myself, put nobody above myself. Energy, energy, build your energy. Love, charity, what a sight to see, what a sight to see. What a colossal, working and working to prosper. What you gonna stop for? Keep on, it's right on the corner. Hey, make way when I'm weird there. Hey, tell the ears that them stay there. Hey, that is your destiny. To be what you ought to be. Even if no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. Them no one can see you fly. Hey. Them no one can see you fly. Them no one can see you touch sky. reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you rich. Them will love to see you in a ditch. Them no want to see you pan tour. Them no want you get more. So get more, show them. You not afraid them. One load them. Every human have a something that them destined. That is your destiny. So be what you ought to be. Even if no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want you reach nowhere, reach nowhere. So you have to find a way, find a way. Them no want to see you fly. Them no want to see you touch sky. Them no want to see you fly. Hey. Bling bling, now me call it King Kong. Every song I write, it's song. Every song I write, it's song. Tell me something, am I wrong?
Yes, good evening, everybody. Sorry for the lateness. Had a few difficulties. Uh, but thank you for anybody who is joining me here tonight. Uh, this obviously is the beginning of a new show. Quality Time with Alan. The name was inspired by my wife because she said that's her love language. So she inspired the name. Um, and see, she gonna give me instructions. So let me go over that. I was saying, the name of the show, new show, Quality Time with Alan, which was inspired by my wife because she said quality time is her love language. And so I chose to make a name off of that. The purpose of the show, of the quality time, is hopefully to inform people about politics, about your role as a citizen, about your rights as a citizen, and to kind of get that into the ear, but not in a negative manner. As I said, it's more of you understanding your rights, understanding how you could effect change for yourself. Because I often hear people with the struggle. Good evening, Larry, and happy New Year to you. I often hear people with the frustration of not being able to change things and not understanding the system. So I want to pass on what I know in those arenas. And I also want to say from since the time I've been kind of commenting on politics, the questions that people have asked me and the challenges sometimes from politicians have allowed me to kind of expand the things that I know. So I would like to use the platform to advocate for certain things which I will speak on throughout the year, like the public accounts committee. Feel like that could bring a lot of information to the general public about how money is being spent and bring real transparency and accountability. I also want to speak about geopolitics. I think everybody know that the big thing going on right now is in Venezuela, and there are other targets in the Caribbean. So this may not be the only, well, and Latin America. So this may not be the only interjection. So I also want to speak about geopolitics, how things that happen by the world affect St. Kitts and Nevis, and how St. Kitts and Nevis could respond to it, how the Caribbean in general responds to these things. There was the UNC Council, an emergency meeting to discuss the situation. And it was interesting. Trinidad and Tobago spoke, along with a number of other countries, definitely the permanent members. Um, One of the things I want to do, we're going to be streaming. If you feel like there are particular political events that you know you want, you just hear what be the same, but you want me break it down, feel free to contact us so that we go follow different events live. We could replay them and go them. Today, as I say, gonna be speaking about the situation in Venezuela, the impacts for the Caribbean, how we should be thinking about it, um, possible paths and things that could happen in the future, and what that's gonna mean for the Caribbean. And the last thing what we're gonna deal with is the SSC, guys. I haven't really gotten to have a say about the SSC. So we're going over the interview. I would commend Yasan and Banki. They have been in essence to get Mr. live to do an interview. Banki is a tremendous guest booker. At this moment in time, I feel like Banki is the number one guest booker in St. Kitts and Nevis. Maybe in the Leeward Islands. Maybe in the Leeward Islands, it's possible. But anyway, the first video we're gonna get into is Mr. Trump and the plans that he has for Venezuela.
President Donald Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela until a safe, proper, and judicious transition can be arranged. This follows an overnight military operation which saw Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro and his wife seized from the capital, Caracas. In a press conference following the raid, Trump pledged to reshape the South American nation's infrastructure and oil industry while keeping a U.S. presence on the ground for as long as necessary. He also dismissed the idea of working with Venezuela's exiled opposition leader, Maria Corina Machado. Maduro's seizure was said to be part of a painstakingly planned attack, which saw a number of explosions across Caracas overnight. Well, it's not immediately clear whether the U.S. will become an occupying force or else install a leader approved by Washington. Donald Trump provided a few details about just how Washington would take over running Venezuela and its.
Yeah, well, one thing I wanted to say before she continued is from a military standpoint, what happened in Venezuela was sensational. I think the U.S. didn't lose any infrastructure. I think one of the helicopters was damaged. Maybe there were a few injuries, but really and truly, from a military precision standpoint, exceptional. I think that the question for the Caribbean now and Latin America is the stability. And one of the ways how we have seen the stability affected is I saw something about there's not gonna be any flights. I think an American link it until the 14th, which would affect certain people who went there for Carnival, especially when you look at the timing of this. I think this occurred on Saturday. Carnival would have done Friday. So maybe you got people stuck there. So there are real implications for it. But from a military standpoint, exceptional. And you also got to consider, as a Caribbean leader, what kind of effect is that gonna have for any of them leaders? What kind of effect is that gonna have?
Oil reserves at his press conference a short time ago in Florida. Here is some of what he did say.
We're going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. So we don't want to be involved with having somebody else get in, and we have the same situation that we had for the last long period of years. So we are going.
This has been well, and let me just say something. You don't have to listen all of the different international news. I could give you a summary of what has happened. This that Mr. Trump is speaking about, with the fact that the US is going to be running it, part of what people have been saying internationally is that this poses a problem because people are saying the strikes were illegal. This is the head of state. And well, when we speak about destiny and we speak about sovereignty, this questions whether or not the sovereignty of Venezuela has been violated. So when they are saying they are running it, this is not emphasizing having a democratic process or anything, and this has been alarming to observers.
Going to run the country until such time as we can do a safe, proper, and judicious transition. And it has to be judicious because that's what we're all about. We want peace, liberty, and justice for the great people of Venezuela, and that includes many from Venezuela that are now living in the United States and want to go back to their country. It's their homeland. We can't take a chance that somebody else takes over Venezuela that doesn't have the good of the Venezuelan people in mind. We've had decades of that. We're not going to let that happen. We're there now, and what people don't understand, but they understand as I say this, we're there now, but we're going to stay until such time as the proper transition can take place. So we're going to stay until such time as we're going to run it, essentially, until such time as a proper transition can take place. As everyone knows, the oil business in Venezuela has been a bust, a total bust, for a long period of time. They were pumping almost nothing by comparison to what they could have been pumping and what could have taken place.
I think this is another big factor. Notice we have already gone. There's not been any, once again, as I said, discussion of necessarily a democratic process. There's been description of a peaceful transition. And also, by the way, there has not been a regime change yet. Regime change is when you get rid of everybody. My understanding is that the the vice president has been, America saw him as an illegitimate leader. Definitely, that was definitely echoed when America spoke at the UN Security Council meeting. And I was gonna get to that a little later because one of the videos is also about the legality. So we're definitely gonna discuss how America is gonna approach this. And there are certain people who definitely feel like America is gonna have a legitimate argument here. And even when you listen to most of the reaction around the world, there has been a lot of support for America. Definitely, there has been support from certain Latin America countries, from Caribbean countries, from the European countries. So it has been a mixed reaction, but now we come to the oil aspect. And it must be understood that Venezuela has, I think they said, the highest amount there is of crude oil. And crude oil, you know how sometimes you just hear people say, how come the gas here looks so light? Whereas it does got a dark kind of rich oil. Well, what America does pump out has been the kind of lighter oil, where factories in America, the refineries are built to process the crude oil, which is the richer oil, which is what Venezuela has, which is more time. So they definitely want to get in there, and they have the capacity and the capability to make the oil fields productive.
We're going to have our very large United States oil companies, the biggest anywhere in the world, go in, spend billions of dollars, fix the badly broken infrastructure, the oil infrastructure, and start making money for the country.
We're joined now by our correspondent in Washington, D.C., Benjamin Alvarez Gruber, who's been following the story and the press conference for us. Good to see you, Benjamin. So we just heard the U.S. president speaking there and saying that the U.S. is now going to run Venezuela, as he put it. How could that possibly work?
So there were also some questions after this press conference that he gave, along with Secretary Hexet, Secretary Rubio, and also the chairman of the armed forces, of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. He said, we're going to run the country. He also said, we are not afraid of boots on the ground. That, of course, raises a lot of questions because there is no bigger U.S. military presence in the country right now. He said that they would stay in the region, would stay vigilant after this operation that happened in the early morning hours between 1 and 2 a.m. But as we just heard him there, it's also something that we refer to over and over again, talking about the oil reserves, about Venezuelan oil. But of course, this is kind of a mixed reactions by many who we have seen the reactions on one side that they're happy that the authoritarian leader Nicolás Maduro was ousted, but on the other side, not sure what this period of rather uncertainty will look like. President Trump said that Marco Rubio, his Secretary of State, spoke to the vice president of Nicolás Maduro, saying that she would also work with them of, quoting President Trump, make Venezuela great again. But it's not quite clear which role she might play and who might be in this group, President Trump said, would then govern Venezuela from now on.
Benjamin, there are also a lot more details about the capture of Nicolas Maduro and his wife.
And that is what I'm supporting, because as I'm saying, listen, this has been very confusing. Because I thought the overall plan would have been to remove everybody, and just to so you understand a regime change, you gotta remove like the vice president. You're going to remove key. You're talking about institutional changes to the infrastructure. So it's kind of confusing that they're still trying to negotiate and trying to say. And it's also been confusing from the standpoint that the lady who has been sworn in as the new president, she has been publicly very antagonistic. She has demanded Maduro be returned, and she has stated that he is the only president. So we could still have a lot of volatility. Another thing to bear in mind is that they have been arming the general public. So I think they said that is like 4 million armed Venezuelan at this point. There's no need for boots on the ground. There's no war there. Plus, there will be some bad actors who will try to take advantage. That's what I'm saying. I think that it is also going to be complicated to get the oil out of the ground. Because also, I think I heard that the Colombian rebels are saying they might come to the assistance. So it's also gonna take time to get production going and all these type of things. So this is definitely the first step, and we still don't know what the outcome will be, except to say that there will be instability, for at least in the immediate future.
What stood out for you in these very detailed descriptions?
One thing is that this does not happen from one day to the next. There are a month of intelligence gathering. We know that CIA was closely connected to sources within the inner circle of Nicolás Maduro. This happened, of course, with this military buildup that we've seen throughout the last month with fighter jets, with Gerald Ford, the world's largest aircraft carrier. And that's something that was also quite remarkable of hearing about these details of how many aircraft were actually involved. John Kane, the chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, spoke of 150 aircraft, close coordination. And also, these were talking about bombers, about fighters, about surveillance that were airborne in operation that lasted for more than 2 hours and 20 minutes. And now we're getting some more pictures also with President Trump's Truth Social post showing Nicolás Maduro on board the USS Iwo Jima, one of the ships in the region. But that also, there was something quite interesting. We heard it by sources, by US media before, but then had confirmation. One of the bigger things that they could not control and were actually looking for to give this green light to the operation was the weather in Venezuela, that they had the green light, but they had to wait for the perfect moment of these attack 20 different bases and vessels. And that's some details that also these high-ranking US officials gave, that no US service men were killed. There were some injuries also. One of the helicopters.
Gigi, you are accurate. The gas going down doesn't have to do with this invasion. And as I say, it's gonna take time ultimately to get this thing going where it needs to go. I think America produces over 100 million barrels of gas or oil per day, and Venezuela is like, and they got the highest reserves. So I also don't feel like this is gonna ultimately affect gas prices in there. This is not gonna have any immediate effect at this time. It's gonna take some time to trickle down. So this is phase one.
Was chartered, but everything could be returned then. So more details by these four officials, not only during this press conference, but also by an interview that President Trump gave to Fox News, where he explained also how Maduro tried to get into a safe in this house that he said looked more than a fortress, but that this team managed to take him out of the country.
Benjamin, the president also mentioned that Congress was not informed of this military operation ahead of time. President Trump saying otherwise Congress would leak, or that this was the nature of the operation made that impossible. But what have been the reactions among lawmakers in Washington to these developments overnight in Venezuela?
So there were early reactions by one of the top-ranking Democrats in the House Intelligence Committee. He said that while Maduro is the illegitimate, I would say was the illegitimate leader of Venezuela, he said that there was no plan to what would happen with Venezuela, with the people, with the country afterwards, once this was achieved, and that Congress should not only have been informed, but should give the green light to this operation. You said it there.
What he talking about there with the permission that Congress, permission from Congress in the United States, if they are going to war, Congress is the one who is supposed to green light it and say, hey, we're going to war. And so the defense, once again, and the Trump administration, you have to admit, they are intelligent. At least they do have perspective that this is not a war. Yes. Yeah. Me just I realized me a break up too. That's why I take a little refresh. I was saying to Chev about the perspectives. Is another perspective is the oil from Venezuela used to go to China, used to go to Cuba, and I think also used to go to Russia as well as other places. And by having America in control of those oil fields, that is also going to be a positive thing. And this also goes back to the new national security plan that the United States published in November, which and you hear it from Secretary of State Marco Rubio. Why should resources from the Western Hemisphere go to support enemies of the United States? This also has implications for the rest of the Caribbean and Latin America. Who your friends are from a political perspective is going to be important. If your friends are not friends of the United States and you are in the Western Hemisphere, I don't think that that's going to work. That relationship is not going to be tolerated. So you're going to have to reevaluate that.
Marco Rubio said Congress was not informed. He called this largely a law enforcement operation. There will be not only Democrats but also Republicans saying that this was not a law enforcement operation. Trump said Congress will leak that, but we can expect that there will be pushback not only from Democrats on Capitol Hill, but also from Republicans. And we'll still need to see how his base will react to that, by a president that campaigned basically of saying that they will end the US's endless wars, military interventions abroad. And we can also expect the White House trying to defend this decision, saying that it was actually impacting US national security.
That was DW's Benjamin Alvarez-Gruber reporting for us from Washington. Benjamin, thank you.
All right. As he just said, and as I suggested as well, he was not seen as legitimate. And so these are further justifications. We're going now to another video further on this subject.
Well, the streets of Caracas were largely deserted in the aftermath of Maduro's seizure, which has thrown the country into uncertainty. People in the capital have begun stockpiling food and other goods. Many say the U.S. strikes came as a surprise, and they're not sure what Maduro's capture means for their future.
On Saturday morning, Caracas appeared almost deserted. Just a few cars on the road, empty streets, and closed petrol stations. Calm is very slowly returning to the city after the dawn bombings that took Venezuelans by surprise.
There were enormous, tremendous explosions in the mountains and then in specific places. The military academy behind the mountains in the Valley Fortuna.
This caught us all by surprise. We were sleeping. We heard an explosion, and then we realized what it was.
People line up at supermarkets to stock up. Many don't know what's going to happen. Some have lost power, and all they care about is filling their refrigerators.
We are buying because we don't know if there will be a shortage. We don't know what will happen, so we are buying.
When I woke up this morning, I found myself in this situation. I'm trying to buy food because we don't know how long this is going to last.
Despite nervousness on the streets, some have not lost their calm or their hope.
Let's hope that all this will soon be over and that Venezuela will be free and that those who want to return will be able to do so.
The U.S. attack and the capture of Nicolas Maduro open a new chapter of uncertainty in the lives of Venezuelans.
And I'm joined now by DW reporter Oskar Schlenker, who is from Venezuela, reported very, very often and for a long time from Venezuela. He's here in the studio now in Berlin. Oskar, obviously, you're also in very close contact with your friends' family in Venezuela. We just heard some people saying basically now they concentrate on stockpiling food because the essentials. Is that what drives Venezuelans now, less than a day after what happened?
Well, I think it's what drives Venezuelans for the past 20 years. We've endured several humanitarian crises, complex, and even though this does come as a surprise for many, there have been these threats against Venezuela for months now, and there have been moments where people have stockpiled on food because we thought that there was going to be an incursion.
One thing I want to say about this stockpiling of food and why the reaction to this has been kind of confusing. The Venezuelan leadership at this point in time is telling people, come out on the streets and rebel against America. And also at the same time, you're seeing video of people celebrating Maduro gone, but you're not seeing people celebrating Maduro gone in Venezuela. And my understanding is that Venezuelans are still very cautious because there has been no regime change. It's still the same set of people who have been repressive in charge of Venezuela. And so you can't necessarily come out and be like too happy necessarily that this action has taken place. You just gotta kind of deal with it.
Unexpected now, but we have expected it in the past. So this is something that people have gotten used to doing long lines to buy food and stock up on basic needs when there are crises, because we've lived through several of them.
Now, we also know, of course, that Venezuela is a divided country. There are supporters of Nicolas Maduro. So far, we've seen very little protests, if any. Do you think we have to expect more, or are Venezuelans basically just sort of accepting the fate, whatever it'll be?
Well, I think there's a lot of fear right now into what's going to happen. The regime has not fallen. Only Maduro has been taken out. And what we've seen in the past months is an increase in repression against opposition leaders, against any sign of opposition or dissent in Venezuela. We have over 1,000 political prisoners, even though in Christmas and New Year some were let out. This is a constant fear that Venezuelans have, that there is kind of like a revolving door on the prison system. So people are let out to let new prisoners in. So there is a lot of fear still in Venezuela because the regime is still controlling everything and people's lives.
That's the point.
And once again, to explain regime change, because you're going to hear this terminology being spoken about consistently as we move into the new world that we're living in. Regime change in St. Kitts and Nevis would mean that you come in and you decide, no, Labour is not going to be in charge, and you put in PAM, or you put in PLP, or you put in somebody else, but you're saying, no, Labour is not in charge. It's not like you just come in and take Dr. Joe. And there are many different outcomes as a result of when you simply take out the head. In our lifetimes, we have seen regime change. Saddam Hussein, we have seen the Taliban, we have seen Gaddafi, Assad, and you could see various outcomes based off a regime change, and not many of them have been necessarily positive for the persons who have lived in those regimes. So this is where I'm saying we gotta look out for the instability, and overall, I think we have to call for calmer heads to arise. I know that certain people might say that CARICOM I I know that some people may feel like CARICOM has not been forceful enough, but realistically, ladies and gentlemen, what is it that you think that CARICOM can do? I want to read the statement. The CARICOM community is firmly committed to the fundamental principles of international law. Nobody is speaking about international law really anymore. And multilateralism, enshrined in the UN Charter, including sovereignty, territorial integrity of states, and respect for human dignity. The region reiterates its call for peaceful dialogue through diplomatic channels to ensure Venezuela's stability, good governance, democracy, and prosperity for the people of Venezuela. CARICOM remains ready to support all such efforts in a spirit of cooperation and mutual respect. The Bureau of the Heads of Government assures that every effort is being taken to ensure the safety and security of citizens of the region. The Bureau will continue to monitor the multifaceted impact of this evolving situation and the implications for the economic activity within the community, particularly air travel, which I spoke about when I told her that I hear that American ain't leaving until the 14th. But CARICOM overall, well, first of all, no individual leader in the Caribbean, it makes no sense for any individual leader. Happy New Year, Iona. But it makes no sense for any individual leader in the Caribbean to speak out against the actions. It is better to be silent, frankly, than to speak out in the actions, because there is no type of difference that we have in the Caribbean for the type of action that we see in Venezuela. 150 planes. The fort that they drug Maduro out of is built into the side of a mountain. And also, you must understand, in the words of Dr. Harris, they are doing the right manship, nothing else that they can do and will do. It must also be said that somebody inside Maduro, and this is another thing to speak about, like the efficiency of the project, there had to have been some kind of inside help to get Maduro out so easily. Somebody inside had to have assisted, and this is down to the work of the CIA.
I mean, there was so much discussion about, well, this could actually be about a regime change. But now we hear that Delcy Rodriguez, the former vice president of Venezuela, who we also heard in the report, demanding Maduro's being set free again, she accepted the presidency. So there's no real regime change, is there?
Well, no, and we have to remember that this is a regime that has been building up for the past 20 years, and a power void in the situation that Venezuela is right now would be very costly for the U.S. if the U.S. wants to govern Venezuela, as it said, until there's a democratic change. But a power void in Venezuela with all the criminal activity that goes on there, all the different mafias, and the crisis that still are going on in Venezuela, it would be catastrophic and very costly for the U.S. to try and manage a power void in the situation we are right now.
So what do you read into Trump saying that the U.S. will, at least for the time, run the country in order to ensure?
So, Marlene, so your contention is that you're going with what the opposition in Venezuela said. The opposition, this was basically a show, and Maduro don't negotiate that, he coming in, and all of that was a show. I don't think it was a show, Marlene. I think that the right people were paid off. I think 80 people were only 80 people were killed. They received little fire in return. Somehow they're saying that they got him out of his bed. He was sleeping. Man, they were bombing, going into, and there were bombs. Like when you look at the video, we could see that there were bombs going on, and he just waking up. So I think that there was some kind of inside assistance to get at Maduro. There has not been an explanation for why it was so easy, as I've heard ex-military and CIA describe
Or a transition to what, given that he seems to feel okay with the vice president taking over the presidency?
Well, that's what many Venezuelans fear. We have a president like Donald Trump that has deported Venezuelans in a very inhumanely manner from the U.S., now calling the shots on what's going to happen in Venezuela. So it's very worrisome for a lot of Venezuelans, but at the same time, there's a lot of hope because now the ball starts rolling without Nicolás Maduro, which was an authoritarian dictator that was calling the shots in Venezuela and that had many Venezuelans worried, so worried that we have the largest migration of people in the hemisphere in history with 8 million, more than 8 million people that have left Venezuela, and that has affected the whole hemisphere.
What about the opposition in Venezuela? I mean, the Nobel Peace Prize winner Machado, she already called for the opposition political Edmundo Gonzalez to claim the presidency. Yesterday in the press conference, Donald Trump didn't seem to be very much impressed by that. How do Venezuelans feel about that? Would they like that?
Yeah, a lot of Venezuelans were shocked to hear Trump say that in the address yesterday, because in fact, in the last presidential elections, many Venezuelans went out to vote for Edmundo González Urrutia, which was the candidate that Maria Corina Machado was supporting because she wasn't allowed to run. So after the Venezuelan government did not show the results and actually handed the re-election to Maduro, then that's when people started saying, well, this is an illegitimate president. So we're waiting to see what the opposition has to say. They're still keeping quiet until they have all the answers.
Okay. Oscar Schlenker, DW reporter from Venezuela. Oscar, thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I like to hear from what people in from the country and who in the country gotta say.
President Donald Trump says the U.S. will run Venezuela until a safe, proper, and judicious transition can be arranged. This follows an overnight military operation which saw Venezuelan leader Nicolas Maduro and his wife seized from the capital, Caracas. We can now speak to Rebecca Hamilton. She's a professor of law at American University in Washington, D.C. Welcome to DW, Professor. So we just heard our correspondent mentioning there that Donald Trump has said repeatedly that Venezuela posed a threat to the United States. So are these...
So, go back and look at history and see how the Shah of Iran came to power. This same scenario happened in 1953 when Mossadegh tried to establish nationalized Iranian oil. It's the same playback again. Yes, definitely. There's definitely a long history of regime change, and this is why you could, I think, one of the things that you have to expect is instability, but the truth is that nobody knows how exactly this is gonna play out. I think that there would be like three scenarios. The first scenario, which America would like very much, is they go in, they are able to clean up the system, they are able to get a friendly capitalist government in charge who will allow for business to operate in a way that Americans could understand. The second scenario is that there will be resistance, which will be put down, and they're going to still end up heading into option number two. The third scenario is that this is gonna be basically a new Iraq, and you're gonna be in here for 20 years, and you're gonna be basically fighting counterinsurgency for the next 20 years, and you're gonna have stability until you don't, because you could see the Taliban were taken out, and the Taliban are back. This video is about whether or not the legality of these actions in Venezuela from an international law perspective.
Strikes on Caracas and President Maduro's capture, therefore in line with international law?
Absolutely not. So there are many violations of international law that have already emerged, and there may be more that will emerge in the coming days. But the use of force against the territory or the political independence of another state is a clear violation of the UN Charter. The cornerstone of the UN Charter is Article 2.4, which is prohibiting exactly the kind of use of force that we saw in the capture of Maduro. And the claim that this was self-defense is just implausible on its face. Self-defense is meant to give countries the option to stop and...
No, Marlene, what you're saying is true. Everything we see unfold really and truly over short term, it ultimately has to do with Russia, China, and America. If you are any other country, you are along for the ride, basically. So you're going to have to get in where you fit in. But Venezuela definitely had to do it.
An armed attack against them. This is not something that the Venezuelan regime had committed or was in the midst of committing against the United States. And then we move on to, we just saw in your news report, Trump's claim that the United States will run the country of Venezuela. Again, we're talking here about the crime of aggression. You cannot, under international law, just go and take over another country, let alone loot its oil, as also seems to be part of the emerging plan. And then finally, this idea that you can haul Maduro before a US court when he is a sitting head of state violates another international law rule around something called head of state immunity. So this is in many ways, there are violations of international law written all over this project.
And to be clear, America is getting around the head of state thing by saying he was not a legitimate leader. He stole the election last year, and therefore they are executing a police action because he was indicted in New York, and so he is basically just a regular citizen. The international lawyers are arguing that even if all of that is true, the particular and also there were states, I think France in particular, was saying that this ruling could undermine the integrity of international law and the UN Security Council if nothing is done. Because if you understand the consistent team, nobody like Maduro, Maduro and a repressive regime. The people who are taking issue with this are taking issue with how he was captured and the fact he was ahead, the fact that force was used, these type of things that are being considered. And you see this going to the ICC. Well, one thing you must know about those different jurisdictions is that America does not recognize the jurisdiction of the ICC. America ain't signing up to those. Even if it goes before them, America will not be abiding by those rulings. What evidence is there that Maduro stole the election? Well, my understanding is that there not being any results printed. That the UN itself found that the elections were not legitimate from what they reported. I think also independent observers, that us be there, and according to what they said in their framework also, there was no evidence that the election went off cleanly. They said the opposition win at least 70% of the vote. And Maduro, before the tally came in, he basically came in and shut it down. Nobody in my mind, as I'm saying, is defending Maduro, Roberto. It's just a matter of how this happened. And ultimately, if the next leader will reflect the will of the people, or if the next leader will simply be placed there by another state.
Well, I do want to ask you about that U.S. federal indictment. So prosecutors are charging Maduro, his wife, and also, in fact, his son with drug trafficking and narco-terrorism and some other charges. Does this at all give the U.S. any kind of legal basis to make these arrests in Venezuela?
No, it doesn't. So this principle of head of state immunity is really important for the functioning of the global system. If we didn't have it, then it would mean that any country could ginny up an indictment against the leader of a country that it didn't like and haul it before its domestic courts, just as the US has done with Maduro here. And it doesn't matter, in fact, whether or not the allegations against Maduro are correct as a factual or legal matter. As long as he is the sitting head of state, he can't be brought before a US domestic court. The principle that applies to Maduro would also also apply to Trump. You can imagine that there's another country in the world, let's say Iran or Cuba, that thinks President Trump has done something unlawful, and then they could issue an indictment and haul him before an Iranian court or a Cuban court. And you can see the chaos that this would bring to the international system. And that's why we have this principle of head of state immunity that protects people while they're sitting head of state.
Well, surely legal experts in the
Well, you bring up an interesting question, Yuji, because I think I saw the Secretary of State speaking about that specifically, about the places who have assisted Maduro or been supportive of Maduro. So I'm gonna be very interested. I know I was kind of shocked how Trinidad and Tobago reacted to that, because they said that they are longtime friends of both the U.S. and Maduro. Well, not the U.S. and Maduro, and Venezuela. So they said that they're still looking forward to a mediator and working with both of them. Maduro needs a trial before the ICC, not the U.S. court. He will not have a fair trial, regardless of what we think of him. Well, it's going to depend upon how the courts determine it. If the courts feel like they have jurisdiction. One thing that I could tell you, and this is what I mean. At least as far as you being informed, the crucial thing is going to be whether or not the court accepts that Maduro was a head of state, and if the United States courts determine that he was not a head of state, they will go ahead and deal with it. If they say he's a head of state, he will not be prosecuted. SK got killed a few years ago from Venezuela. I don't know how these things will be looked into. I don't know. I would be interested to see how Caribbean nations that have relationships with Cuba are gonna be looked at. Relationships with Panama gonna be looked at. I was hoping they had come from Mark. Mark and Timothy, they don't have jurisdiction. He was kidnapped. He was recognized by other countries as head of states, and so how that work? Well, all I'm saying is that is gonna be a very key determination, and it's one of the defenses that Maduro will use. I think he was arraigned today in New York, and his plea was not just that he not guilty, that he is the president. So everybody basically is coming with the case to kind of start to make the preliminary argument so we could see where he going. He was recognized by head of state. He was recognized by the United States as well. So is up and down. But that is gonna be a vital thing. And as I say, even when you determine whether or not he was head of state, when you think you're bad, boy, even when they don't determine whether or not he was head of state, they will still have to determine whether or not the action was legal. Because can you just bomb a country, go in and pick up somebody and take them back to the United States to go into a court? So that is also still kind of a breach of sovereignty. How is wife coming? Because all the time her name was never mentioned, but they threw her in and charged her. I also understand now that the son get charged too. This is also another kind of inconsistency, because the wife was never charged before. But the good thing about this is, as I heard one of the US ambassadors, well, not the ambassador, actually in the UN Security Council, he said that the trial will be a public trial. So we are going to see the evidence presented at the very least. And the person who is defending Maduro they're saying is he defend the WikiLeaks founder. So he has a good life.
The United States must be aware of this immunity for heads of state, and yet the U.S. Attorney General said that Maduro will face, as she put it, the full wrath of American justice. So what do U.S. prosecutors have in mind, do you think?
So I'm anticipating that the Trump administration's argument is going to be that he isn't entitled to head of state immunity by perhaps trying.
That are the confusion. This also got implications for Russia and Ukraine. Because one of the things people are saying is that this is basically going to be the new world order. Russia get to control Europe. The Americas belong to America. And China is going to take Asia and Africa. And that's just what we got to deal with. Julian Assange is one of the defense. Maduro got the political dream team. This higher than the team what OJ had.
To claim that he isn't truly the head of state. Now, that's very difficult when the US itself has recognized him previously as the sitting head of state. And while, as we saw in your earlier newsreel, you have the vice president of
my understanding of the Noriega capture was that Noriega was not the official head of state. He was he was the boss. We know he was running the country, but he wasn't the official head of state. And that still come back down to the level 2 of suppose you in your country now, suppose you in a Singis and Nevis now. Should it be that the man could just bomb Singits and Nevis, pick you up and take you? That's the other consideration. That's where America gone into Nigeria. They're making sure they hold on to the second largest oil reserve before China can influence the whole of Africa. When we're talking about this oil thing, this is also why you kind of hear stuff about like Iran might be next. Iran also has a lot of oil, and a lot of oil that goes to China. And if you could cut that off, then when you are gonna ultimately be ready to face China in the next couple of years on the battlefield, at the very least, you have secured tremendous oil reserves while cutting them off from their sources. So from a logistics standpoint, that's the strategy I see playing out.
Venezuela herself reiterating that Maduro is indeed the president. The only thing that I would say is that we could have US domestic law and international law tracking differently on this issue. A court could, in the US, defer to the Trump administration's assertion that he is not eligible for head of state immunity. I think that would be challenged, certainly, and it's an issue that could make its way all the way up to the US Supreme Court.
That was law professor Rebecca Hamilton. Many thanks indeed for sharing all of your insights with us. We really appreciate it.
My pleasure.
Okay. So now we come to the main event. As I have told y'all, I haven't spoken about the SSG publicly. Not that I could recall. And I haven't interviewed any of the principals who were involved. But I want to go back over this interview with Yason. With y'all, maybe we could find some things. And maybe we could start to ask certain of the right question. Y'all could help me so that possibly, if I get in front of one of the principals, because I'm still trying, that maybe I could have the right set of questions to ask. That's why Trump was threatening Iran not to harm the protesters. There was a coup attempt of Burkina Faso the same day, so they captured General Toure. They would have taken him back to France. Why? A lot going on. But anyway, as I said, when it comes to this Janssen situation, because we were told, I think we're going to get to that in the interview and definitely by the premiere, that we want to get this thing signed over and done with by the end of the year. We have not been updated as to if anything has been signed. The budget was eerily quiet with regards to the projections, particularly if the SSC was going to be starting next year, particularly if the airport was going to be starting. The budget was eerily silent with regards to the projections and what these things would bring in for the country. So I want to go back over, because I feel like soon we're going to hear something about Janssen, whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. So let's go over here. I cut off the introduction, so we're supposed to go straight to one of the questions. Ask them who was all in the room when Nevis was being sold off.
Okay, we're going to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself to folks who may not know you at this point. I'm pretty sure that a lot of folks on Nevis would have heard of you, think it's a Nevis. But our platform is global.
Janssen's. I don't understand why I don't have
So there's a lot of folks who may not know who you are. So we're going to give you the opportunity to at least.
Janssen need to build his destiny in Belgium. Oh my God. Oh, my mother's. Oh, well. Dahlia, give me what? Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, yeah, Mr. Reddit, I don't have any volume on the Janssen's video. Yeah? Me can't hear nothing.
Yeah, I was hearing Janssen speak. See if on the Janssen video, if you put on the
No, it wasn't selected. Okay, alright, no problem. Okay, everybody could hear now.
Give that, brief introduction, and then we get into some of the questions concerning the project that you are proposing for the island of Nevis.
Sure, thank you. So my name is Olivier Janssens. I'm the founder of Destiny. Would you like to know some more about my background, or what would you like me to say?
Yes, that would be nice. A few minutes to share a little bit of who you are, so that folks can get an idea.
Yeah, sure.
Who you're speaking.
Yeah, so I've
Okay, watch out. Even before he started to really talk, right? I'm nearly certain. And next time we speak, we're not going to do all tonight, It's only going to be part one. But I'm nearly certain that people who does be looking up to the right is some kind of deception in what I'm going to say. But I'm going to come back to you with the next episode going to be about the language doctor. So I'm going to explain to you that concept there. But Mr. Janssen is talking.
I have a tech management background. I'm a tech entrepreneur. I'm engineering background, and
because he's speaking kind of funny there. What he's saying is tech. So he's a tech. He sounds like he's saying tesh, but he's a tech entrepreneur. He got a tech background. Good night, Ruby.
I've started my first company when I was in my early 20s. It was a very successful Belgian telecom company. I then, started helping out in Bitcoin. I was part of Bitcoin at the very beginning when it was just started in 2010. I helped launch the first Bitcoin Wikipedia page. I helped the project to become successful. I promoted it everywhere in the world. And then I was also part of the Bitcoin Foundation. And then, and in 2016 there was the block size war, and then we lost that basically. And then I don't want to go into too many technical details about Bitcoin itself, but basically, Bitcoin was supposed to be a peer-to-peer cash system where you could transact freely for a very low fee. And there was a group that unfortunately won, and they wanted to keep the block size limited. And at that point, the fees to do the transaction became very high, and it was sort of abandoned and became more of a store of value. I also was one of the first people in Ethereum and an investor in that. And then, now I'm investing in SpaceX, X, and Tesla. And I've been Nivision, and I know that's sort of like a delicate topic because people don't really think you're Nivision until you've been there for generations, I guess. But for officially, like I am for about 8 years now. When I got the passport, I'm very happy with that. So I then started this project, and it was a couple of years ago.
Okay, tell me if this is a question what anybody would like to know. So he said he's been in Nivision. Happy New Year, Miss Morton. I wish you all the best, health, strength, and prosperity. He said he's been a Nivision for 8 years. How long do you think he has been discussing doing some kind of project in Nevis? She don't really got a resume. He's an investor in the company. Well, he sounded like he was an early promoter of Bitcoin, and as you say, at this particular moment in time, he is an investor. And he's an investor in Elon Musk companies, to be specific. He giving us the big ones. He's invested in Starlink and Tesla. So his portfolio is rising. But is it valid since he got a passport since 2016? That would have been under Team Unity, to ask how long he has been engaging with the Premier. Is that a fair question? He adding anything to what we already know? And when I started, I was thinking the same thing. Notice he kept looking up and not into the camera. Larry, we're gonna do some body language, doctor. We're not gonna let it slide.
That we started looking around, and I was thinking, okay, where's the best place? And I found that to be.
Gigi, it got to be 2016. He said for 8 years now. And we remember we did the interview last year. So that 8 from 24 or 16. So you're only 3 years.
Nevis, because I'm also, first of all, Nivision, but I also think it's the best place in the world, obviously, and the most beautiful place. It has.
Okay. Here, this is another petty question. Is it possible for you to believe somewhere is the best place in the world? Is it fair now for me to ask, like, how much time you'll spend in Nevis? If you're telling me that that's the best place in the world, is it a fair question at all? Should we just go for the money? He became a citizen by our land. This being okay. Nothing wrong with it. High.
Enormous potential. The people are amazing. So I thought, okay, this.
We might not get to that part there. in this year, but I do want you to take note of how wonderful he says Nevis is at the start. He said the people are wonderful. It's the best place in the world. I do recall at some stage later in this conversation that he said that the crime rate is very high. And I took offense to that. Soon as he said so, I would like some substantiation. But I just want I to make note that he's saying how lovely Nevis is at this particular moment in time. He didn't become because he like our culture. He realized we have some very corrupt politicians ready to sell our lands. Still at the same time, he got to see something what gonna make him feel like he gonna make a return on his investment. Ultimately, it's not just about the acquisition of land, it's where the land is and what he gonna be able to do with it to get a return on the investment.
It's just the best place to do it. And then, I guess sort of the rest is sort of history, where it became known to the public in the last couple of months. Unfortunately, there has been a lot of misconceptions. I think that's also part of a communication problem, of course. If I would hear what people have been saying, I would be very upset myself, right? If I hear all the rumors and believe them, I would be terrified almost, right? Because it's very scary what people are saying. Fortunately, it's not true, right? And I'm also here to correct all of that. Now, the good thing is, even if you don't believe me, you don't have to believe me, right? We always say trust but verify. So if you don't want to trust me, that's fine. You verify the facts yourself. The facts are today. There is no agreement signed with the government, right? There's nothing that's been passed or secretly agreed to. The SSZ Act, which I will get back to in a second.
I've been wanting to lie. I've been finding it offensive that he said is now secret deal. And I actually went to look up the definition of secret deal, and he's not lying. A deal that is done in private is not necessarily a deal that is done in secret. Secret apparently mean that one side is hiding something from the other. So if Gigi was saying, like for example, if he know that there is something over on that side of Nevis, and he is hiding that information from us, then that would be a secret deal. But this is a private deal, and so we can't say that it is in secret, at least not yet.
The SSZ Act is a limitation that was put in place by the government, and I will tell exactly how that works soon, but I don't want to go into it yet. So the SSZ Act is a limitation, and one of the limitations is that any agreement that is, going to be passed or agreed to with the government has to be passed in Parliament, which means any agreement that we would sign, hopefully in the next weeks, will then be submitted to Parliament. Then it will be publicly scrutinized by everyone in St. Kitts and Nevis. You can give your comments, you can have your feedback. And only then, when everyone has seen the agreement, it will be either passed or not passed, right? So nothing has happened yet. And
I would just like to make a little interjection here. When it comes to our government informing us that was a secret. Well, you see that what I tell you, it private until it public. So secret is only if once again, if there's something in the deal that is gonna hurt the visions that we don't know about, well then that's a secret deal. And that would be hard on the premier. I don't think that he should go that road.
everything can only happen with your full transparency, or you having full.
Oh yeah, I start back. I wanted to get my train of thought. He does do this thing where he's trying to tell us that the SSZ is gonna protect you, and there's gonna be full transparency. Ladies and gentlemen, this is only gonna be possible if we hold the government to the letter of the law. Now, I wanna inform everybody of certain things. 'Cause you need to, whether it is your opposition representatives or the party in power, you must ask them for this if you are interested in knowing what is in the SSC. Every time a bill goes to Parliament, under the laws of St. Christopher and Nevis, when it is discussed the first time, it is supposed to be published in the Gazette. And that does not mean that we got to go and get the book. They could put it online on the internet. That is enough to say that it's gazetted. And that is what we need, really and truly. So then Mark can't be crazy to sign and everybody else. If we get it published, then it will be able to be scrutinized by the general public and in particular the professionals who could push it if there are any negative. Somebody tag Mark, let him come listen. But the man don't be crazy, man, and go off and sign the deal on his own. Well, I'm saying that whatever deal is signed, if we are to go with what Parliament is supposed to do, be immediately after the first reading. The publication is supposed to happen definitely after the third reading, but after the first reading is supposed to be available to the general public. And you know that after the first reading, you will have some time in between the first and the third. If this happens, it will give the public at least some time to digest the deal. I want to tell you that there is some interesting language that we have not seen, but we have heard it is going to be in the deal. It is called guaranteed language, meaning if you don't do this, I could do that. You don't live up to this obligation, I could stop the deal, I could get a particular amount of damages. I had been, Alan, you think he wants to bring it to the public? I'm not asking what he wants to do, you know. All I'm simply asking is that the lobby followed. And I know that the leader of the concerned citizens movement likes to follow the law. We had a recent conversation where I explained to him some that he has been breaking, so I hope that he will be able to rectify those matters. And one of the matters is publicize it so that the general public are able to go through this document and able to have some kind of opinion. It would be healthy for the budding democracy of St. Kitts and Nevis if he would allow that to happen.
Transparency and your opinion being included, because there's nothing more public than having a parliamentary session where all the public documents are made public. So I want to say
once again, he is saying where all of the things are made public. Ladies and gentlemen, I got serious beefs because some of the documents are not being made public in a timely fashion. I simply want the law to be followed. So when the document is laid before Parliament, I'm not saying during Parliament, but it will not come into effect and it should not be further debated until it is publicly gazetted. And then let the time run. And then let's go on. Because really and truly, there is not going to be any way to stop this. As soon as Parliament starts, the government is going to have the eyes. I'm simply saying, let us be in a position where we could offer our critique and the legislation so that it's not a secret, so that there is transparency. And from transparency, then we could begin to work towards accountability.
today to everyone. If you're scared about this project, if you're worried, I understand, especially if you hear everything that's been going around, which I hopefully will help to sort of give you the truth today, right? About the facts that are really there. But even if you don't believe what I tell you, you can soon, hopefully in a couple of weeks, again, look at the agreement that will be in front of Parliament. You can look at all the documents there, and you.
Once again, and this happened in October, and he said in a couple of weeks. No, to be fair, anybody tell Abby in a couple of weeks or 2 weeks, Abby think about. But in this manner, we gonna have some grace and we're gonna understand that agreements like this don't necessarily happen in a day. Is the culmination of many days' effort and negotiation. So, but we do know from that statement that the signing of the deal and therefore the nature of the negotiations are at an advanced stage. This is not preliminary negotiations no more. This is we getting ready to lock in.
You can judge yourself, right? And then you can say, okay, I'm concerned about that. I'm concerned about this. But I hope we should not be concerned about things which are not true, because there's so many things that are not true. And I'm hoping today to give you this clarity. That's all I'm asking. Have an open mind, listen to what I say, and then afterwards you can check it yourself. So, yeah, thank you.
All right, great. Yep. All right, thank you very much. I mean, you have said a lot, and definitely, I mean, whatever make yourself comfortable, just relax with just reasoning, and you just will a simple question. So your first question comes from me. On this project, I mean, it should be a residential hotelier, I'm not sure, but upon completion, what would be on a yearly basis all year round the population within living in that zone? What would be the population on a yearly basis living within the zone? What is expected? The amount of people?
Yes. Well, we are development in the end, right? That means we have to build the units. People have to buy the units. That means we need time to build those, and also we need to be able to sell those, right? So, in an ideal version, we will be able to sell thousands of units, but that might take many years before we get there. We can't sell 5,000 units in a year. That would be pretty.
Yes, I understand that, but I'm just saying, upon completion, what will be the total amount of people you expect living on a yearly basis all year round as resident within that zone? What population you looking like?
I don't really know. It's like asking how many people will live in Nevis, in the next 20 years. It depends on demand and the market. For example, if we become like St. Bart's, right, and have the same sort of degrees of popularity, it also has limited space. So I can't in good conscience tell you exactly how big it will become in 5-10 years. Of course, we are aiming for thousands of units. It's not going to be hundreds of thousands, right? It's just going to be thousands of units. Will it be a couple thousand? Will it be more like 5,000, 10,000? I don't really know. This is sort of like a guess for me too. So.
No, I want to say at that statement, I am stunned that they are in advanced negotiations, and he's being asked, well, how many units we're looking at, and he can't tell us how many units we're looking at when the project is complete. Destiny will be another Ramada if allowed. He's not even sure about his development. It is alarming. It's rather interesting he mentioned St. Bart's. The premier went there the other day. Hey, the premier has been in some wonderful places, man. He always mentions high end places, but the overall thing that we have to pay attention to is that when you are in advanced negotiations, I think that it should be a lot more solid on how many units we're looking at in an ideal situation at completion. I think that he could also have said, well, man, approximately. He could have said, well, a best case scenario. He could have said a medium scenario. He could have said a low end scenario. But there is no way for us to judge how the projections of this project and what this project is gonna bring to Nevis in the long term. If in the long term he does not even know how big this project is gonna be, that is alarming.
I hope we can become successful because, and I will go into the details why that will be great for St. Kitts and Nevis in terms of the GDP and the study, Oxford economic study that was done, and the profit share that we will also do with Nevisians. So our success is also your success. But in terms of units, exactly, this is sort of the idea which I just gave. It can be a couple of thousand. It can be more, but I don't know. Hopefully.
Okay. I know the Premier mentioned there should be a population within 7 to 10,000, more or less. And at the town hall, there was a young gentleman asked a question where, if there are cap between 7 to 10,000, and the Deputy Premier at the town hall meeting responded, there is not a minimum limit. Max, so within your development, you should have an idea. Currently, how much land do you have currently? Is there is that a minimum when it comes to the amount of acreage that you're looking for? But within the designs that we've seen at the town hall meeting, there was expected to have 2 or 3 zones, but I realized there are 6 zones. So what is the maximum capacity that can fill that zone? Because the reason why I asked this question, because I met with your PRO, Ms. Elmes, and I asked the question within how much people will be living all year round, and she did answer the question and say it will be over 10,000. So I'm asking the question direct, what will be a population? Because there's a number out there already. And
this is listen. If Oliver Janssen is able to create a city in St. John's and St. George, and I think maybe a little bit of St. Paul's Parish, that he is able to support with only 6 square miles of Nevis, it is saying that we have failed successive governments, everybody, we have failed collectively to govern and administer and share the resources of Nevis. It would be a disaster. In my estimation, no, I understand some of the good things. But if he's going to take 1/6 of the land and support a population that Nevis has had basically since Nevis has been Nevis, I don't think it's gonna look good for the government. I could be wrong, but I don't think it's gonna look good for the government. And I also think that we're gonna have to take a hard look at a number of the things that would have been implemented over there at that particular time, and we are gonna have to do basically all of them. 10,000 is just an estimated amount, but it's a big estimate. Listen, even if they put 5,000 people over there and they're able to support it, it's gonna say a lot. And I also don't think, like, I was wondering this the other day, right? If you are Spencer Brand and you are the minister for the St. Paul area, Charleston is the most important part of Nevis from an economic perspective. Wouldn't putting 10,000 people in St. John's take away from the importance of the capital of Nevis? I don't know. I don't know how to interpret it. I don't know what it means. But I think that it is interesting to consider what this development would do for the importance of Charlestown.
To avoid as much transparency as possible, the more information that is out within the general public is very important. Because I know you said you're a citizen, but those who listen to the sound of my voice, when someone let me say, I am a navel string berry, that resonate with them, that sit with them, because Navis is 13.5, between St. Kitts and Navis, there's like 50,000 plus Navisions like you, we say the Navisions like you or Kittitians like you, but in the reality, there are only a few 30 to 40,000 of us native. So the population density that have been putting out there really causing another awareness amongst the natives, where you find the Chamber of Commerce, the law fraternity, the ecclesiastic, the churches, is just even the Attorney General father, who is a KC, even commenting on it. So it shows that it's a lot of controversial, and this is, from what I've realized, is all spectrum of society is having concern with this development. So that's the reason I'm asking you, what is the population you're looking at within that development? And the more transparent this information is, then it's better, because this seems to be the big issue. The number is that the locals will be the minority in the long run.
Well, the honest answer in terms of what the population will be in the future, I can't really tell you, right? We have a goal that we want to aim for, right? And it's, 5,000, 10,000 units. But I mean, I can't really say how much we will be able to sell, right? So I can't tell. But
listen, the average condo, as far as I have been made aware, I think it's between 2.2 and 2.6 people as being a condo. Okay, if they do 10,000 units, that's 25,000 people, and so yeah, 5,000 gonna be 12 and a half. How is this gonna be? So, well, I do feel like there is gonna be enough resources, right? And this is why you also have to understand why there are some people who find this appealing. If there are an extra 10,000 people on Nevis, it's gonna be beneficial overall for people who produce. Everybody does go same man now feel good about going same man. Same man is the same size as Nevis, but it's just that it seems bigger because the population is closer to 100,000 than 10,000. Same thing when I go St. Thomas, etc. It's a very similar size, but the population is bigger, and so it allows you to produce more, hopefully to tax less and these type of things. So there are some genuinely attractive aspects to this. It's just a matter of what it's gonna mean for the wider region. But not the wider region, the island on a whole. Because there is also a history of these enclaves, which were very common in the colonial times. Anytime you see new something, New Delhi, may I say New Delhi, New Amsterdam, New Caledonia, New England, these places, they try to recreate the colonial world within the colony. They recreate the homeland in the colony. This has had deleterious effects on the culture. It causes a power imbalance, because listen, that's the next thing. These 10,000 people are gonna be. That's gonna be where the economic power is gonna go, which is why I was asking, how is this ultimately gonna affect Charlestown? Same bus is not affordable to the common man. These are the other things as well. And that's another thing, like even Bermuda, which the premier was speaking about. Bermuda has a very high cost of living. Is this where we want to go? I think Nevis really and truly also too. I know I just hear the politicians say that we need upscale and luxury, but I do not necessarily know that I generally hear Nivision saying that we need that. So maybe this is something that we need to discuss as a nation. Is this the way we want to go? Luxury, boutique, etc., etc. Do we want to genuinely build and show off a Nivision culture and identity?
Let's go back to the root of the question, and I think that's also very important to address. What are the concerns, right? If you have increase in population, what are the concerns surrounding that? Like, what are you worried about? Because I think that's also important to talk about.
Okay, let me ask an easier question for you then. Is the project a CBI project?
We're still discussing with the government, of course, but yes, the idea is that people that buy a unit can also, or get a passport with that. So it also increases the CBI income, because the CBI income has been drying up substantially. It's also a big concern for the island, so it can definitely help rejuvenate the whole passport program. And also talking about passports, and I think it's a much more urgent concern, right? If you're worried about people having passports or voting rights.
Gigi, one of the questions and what I have, I don't know if anybody ever considered this. If the SSZ seemingly is going to fix a lot of the problems that Nevis generally has, faster access to licenses and faster turnaround of documents and easier payment of fees and all these type of things, less taxes. If all of these policies are so wonderful and so attractive to businesses, shouldn't these policies be applied to all divisions so that everybody could benefit? If it would benefit foreign actors, why wouldn't it benefit the local persons in the same way and cause them to want to create businesses and take more chances? So, I mean, that is a consideration.
And I will also go into that, of course, because I think it's important. You have right now 50,000 passports that were sold, right? So you already have like double the population of what you have right now, and those come with voting rights. And I think that's an issue that needs to be addressed by the federal government, because technically those people can come to St. Kitts and Nevis today and vote.
Yes.
And this is a bigger.
We need some clarity on this. I haven't actually seen anything from a legislative standpoint that says whether or not these people could vote. When I did a AI search, it said no, economic citizens can't vote. But this is definitely a point of contention. This is and when I say a point of contention, I not only mean with the local people, but I think I've heard the premier repeat more than one time that economic citizens do not have the right to vote. So Mr. Janssen is saying that they will have the right to vote could cause significant tension and could be a reason why there's been a delay. Because this is something that needs to be sorted out, and this is something that would really have a massive impact. I mean, St. John's already is the biggest constituency. St. John got over 4,000 registered voters, and you're gonna put 10,000 more over there? Come on. The other thing is, I do not see the diversity that this project is bringing. This project seems to be more tourism Exactly. I still don't think that he should have been selling these things as no CBI. He says that he will be building hotels. Stick to the hotel. Well, my problem is the hotels. In the drying, I saw a cricket ground. I mean, I hear nothing about the cricket ground. And when you gonna got 10,000 people, how is it possible you building something for families and you ain't telling me about the parks that you're gonna have in here? You ain't telling me about the recreational stuff and the amenities and these type of things. It can't just be tourism. In my from the SSZs, even that this has been compared to the one in Dubai and the SSZs that I have seen that are beneficial, they are more concerned with manufacturing. They are more concerned with the acquisition of skills and training by locals, their ability to learn how to maintain something, produce something, so that there is actually something being traded. You know what I mean? You're actually improving the capability of the country rather than us just doing more tourism. Because more tourism really and truly is gonna produce for us more people in that sector there. So we're talking about more concierge, more more landscaping, more cooking, and I'm not saying that any of that is bad. I'm just saying that we ain't going up the production chain. You look, you said the cricket gongs. He's lying. He's Gigi me want coach. I want coach for the team. I got my certificate. I could coach. But my bigger thing is that the diversity that we are being promised, and I'm gonna be consistent in my warning of this. I want to hear more about the things, the technology that is gonna be shared, that is gonna improve St. Kitts and Nevis. As far as I think that he said he could help us with a payment system, I think that would be beneficial. Communications. I think we need to be clear about how we're doing this quote thing. I will say they have spoken about the Dubai SSZ, and when I read the legislation for the, you have to revisit the combo. Oh, combo. Yeah, I might go do that for real. But the Dubai SSZ says that they are not in control of civil litigation in the zone. But when you're in the zone, you're still subject to the criminal laws of Dubai. And they got the Dubai police in there and all these type of things in that emirate. It's another crypto island. But the Dubai Financial Center is not just tourism. I mean, of course, they're going to build up the tourism, but it is more about the Dubai financial, the Dubai SSZ has become a financial center. So they do a lot of LLC and they do production and them type of things there. There is a finance market. It's basically Middle Eastern London at this particular moment in time.
Problem than having something which is now sort of theoretical with a couple thousand people coming versus having the 50,000 already.
Well, the reality is the 50,000 out there, most of them not even know what Nevis is really. But this project will bring a residency more or less bigger than the population in Nevis. So it's a total different way of saying it. So it's really two different. It's really apples and cheese. But so if it is a CBI project, so which means you will be having shares to sell. in order to develop the project? I mean, how will that work? Because also you really mentioned in the a video.
Well, that's how come I said there needs to be clarity, because once again they are promoting and saying that this is going to be like the Dubai zone, and in the Dubai zone, if you commit a crime in there, you are going to be facing United Arab Emirates law. In a matter if you're in the zone. With regards to civil litigation, civil litigation mean like I suing you personally for like a breach of contract, them kind of thing there. Then that would be taken care of by the courts inside the jurisdiction. In our legislation, we have not said specifically that the court in the SSZ is only going to have jurisdiction for civil matters. And so I feel like that is something that should be addressed. Crypto, or he spoke about crypto exchange. I do not deny that he spoke about it, but I'm just saying that this is something that would be to hear about the technology that is going to be exchanged. If we are now going to be dealing with the digital currencies, I welcome that. We could start with having panels to inform people about like what blockchain is and why it's gonna be beneficial. If there's gonna be training to teach people how to mine, any of these things are wonderful to me, because that gonna increase our technical capacity in the digital space. But I have not. All I'm saying is that I haven't heard them explain explicitly. Well, what I would say with regards to the police force area is that there's a possibility now that you could go on a recruitment drive. You could improve, for example, the pay that you want to offer police officers and these type of things. There are ways to make this thing happen, in my estimation. So we could grow the police force if we do this in the right manner.
Yesterday evening, where you say you'll have some low affordable homes. Let me say affordable homes. That's your exact word. I don't want to say what you say. They will have affordable home within that environment. So, but if it's a CBI project, it means that the home within that environment have to start at.
The low affordable homes cannot be a real part of this project. The project specifically asks for, well, the SSZ Act specifically mandates that the type of buildings be built are sustainable, but also luxurious. So the ability to have homes that are going to be affordable, this is not a real thing in my estimation.
At certain prices, so how would affordable homes fit into that environment? But still, as I mentioned, remember, as I told you, your PRO told me the residency all year round will be over 10,000 living within that environment. So I just want to put that on. So do you stand with that amount?
Yeah, I mean, if we're successful, then we can definitely get to that number, right? I mean, we can get to 10,000 residents, of course, but I can't promise it. That's basically what I mean, right? We can't guarantee that it will be that many, but we'll definitely try to get there. Yes. Yeah.
Okay. So back to the same question now. So explain how the CBI gonna work when it comes to buying a condo or a home. If by buying that, if you're gonna have shares to sell. Do that come with shares? How that works?
You mean CBI, or because I'm not?
Yes, yes. So where the funding gonna come? Yes. How does that work? Usually CBI mean you get amount of shares, and then you sell the passport. The money will help to develop the project and stuff like that. So how does that work for your project?
Well, technically, it is when you buy a unit, right? The moment you have paid down at least $325,000, if I'm correct, you have a right to a passport, right? So we're talking to the government to make sure that every unit that gets sold also has an obligation to get a passport with that unit. So there's a guaranteed CBI income per unit that is sold, if that makes any sense. I'm not going to go into the technical details because I don't want to say anything that's incorrect. But
yeah, but I was trying to find some information on that. My understanding is that it is basically non-existent. He's speaking about a SSZ zone in Antigua. And my understanding is that not much is happening there.
The whole idea is that the CBI program will be involved and St. Kitts and Nevis would get CBI income from units being sold, yes. Obligated, yes. So, I can't hear you anymore.
Your mic is muted. Your mic is muted.
Yes, sorry about that. If this is...
Well, so I want to understand. He used very specific words just now. And this is why it's underrated, some of the questions that does be asked sometimes. He said that they will be gaining income through CBI, which means, in my estimation, they are gonna set up either a firm or they are gonna have a relationship with some kind of legal firm in St. Kitts and Nevis, and that is where they will be funneling their money. And that is going to be an interesting relationship to monitor. Who does Destiny choose to do business with? As I say, will they set up their own firm? But there is definitely, you need to pay attention to the fact that he said that they will be gaining revenue from selling passports. So this is one of the ways that the project will receive funding.
At this present time, if the project have to start tomorrow, which means you have the funding already in place to do the total complete project? So where's the funding going to come from? How much funding you have already to start that project? If you say you have to start tomorrow, well, X amount of unit will be finished within the first year and a half. The second is the project just flow with no stopping, and you're saying the white horse is a white elephant, as they call it. So are the funding available as we speak without anything as a go?
Yeah, first of all, as part of the development agreement, we need to show the government proof of funds, right? So we need to show that we can have the funding to build this. We did that, and we will continue doing that, right? Otherwise they cannot sign the agreement. We have the funding in place. It's also an incremental type of funding deal, right?
What you're saying, you should not be allowed, Gigi.
We will fund, let's say, the first couple hundred units to be built, and then those units will be used. And of course, I have to be very clear about the accounting. We will use strict accounting. We will abide by international development rules. So we can't just take the money and create some sort of like pyramid scheme, because some developments try to do that. We can only use the profits towards future developments. So in any case, the whole idea is that this will be gradually built over the years, and that we will have the necessary funding. And once...
One thing we also got to pay attention to, you hear how he talking about now, it's going to be gradually built over the years, whereas we have heard that there will be strict timelines, and also the using the CBI funds. Well, listen, I think that we need to be very clear about when he said using CBI funds. I am not alleging that he's gonna be using money from St. Kitts and Nevis CBI revenue. You know? That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that when he is selling his unit, he is gonna have a package in there that say, well, if you add an extra X amount of dollars, then we are gonna do your CBI application for you. So he's gonna get the money from the unit, and he's gonna get the money from the CBI application, and that is whether he said establishes a form to do the applications, or he funnels the applications to a particular firm and say, well, this is the amount what you're gonna get, and this is the amount what you're gonna get. So I'm not saying that he's gonna be using St. Kitts and Nevis CBI funds. That would be inaccurate. I'm saying that he got plans to make money off selling the unit, and also pointing you in the direction of somebody who is gonna do the CBI application on your behalf. I feel like that's generally how he rolls.
So we have the investment. Once we have the first couple of hundreds of units built, then we can easily get investment for the next couple hundred units, right?
That also what that also what he just said is a critical part of the plan. The real plan is to, as he said, they're gonna pay for the first set of units out of the pocket from money that they have already secured, and then they plan to essentially just reinvest the money there over and over, and just that's the plan. So the first couple, how many ever they build, that is where it be is gonna be used to continue the project. You hear him say once it happen, so he not sure. Well, yeah, based on the contingencies, the ifs and the buts.
But for the first couple hundred units, we have the funding in place. We can't, fund, let's say, $10 billion up front, because you have to do this gradually. So for the first hundreds of units, we have funding that's in place, and when that's successful, we will then start building the next from that, if that makes sense. But again, always by standards.
Yes. So for the general public who are listening and those who are watching, so for the first phase, what do you have to? How much residents you expect to build in the first zone, and what will be the cost of? Like, I know back in the 90s, Four Seasons was set to cost $300 million. So what is your present cost for the first zone? That funding you have presently ready to go?
Yeah, so we want to be very careful and conservative when we start. So we don't want to flood the market with 1,000 villas, right? This is not in our advantage. So we will only have a small amount of villas initially that we will build and sell. And then after those are sold, we will start building the next. So we're building in neighborhoods, which means, and there's not 6 zones, it's only one zone, right? There's no 6 zones. It's just one. Destiny is only one area. It's not spread around.
Yeah, but on the layout, how we have everything designed, like we have we call it those homes when you go play golf and different stuff. What do you call those again? You have about 8 of them within that zone. The clubhouses, which was in this the zone 6, and then where you have the hot springs and area and stuff like that, where there will be the spa. That was in a different zone. Because I tend to sit at the front of the class and pay attention. So can you say not 6 zones? So the Premier had also mentioned, when he mentioned zones, he had mentioned there'll be no more than 2 or 3 zones. But then I realized there's 6 zones. So why 6 zones then? But you say it's one. But on the paper that Mr. Brand shows, there are different numbers within the chart they call. So I'm just saying.
Yeah. Of course, you have Destiny Destiny is the whole area, right? This is the area, and then we subdivide that in phases. You have phases. That's why they're numbered.
Yes.
Or we also call them zones, but it's not like it's separate. It's one contingent area, and there's like subdivisions in zones. Yes, exactly. So we can call Zone 4 is more towards the middle between Saddle Hill and Long Point Port.
Roberto Chapman, this is my exact issue with what is taking place. All of the prophets that we are hearing about, all of how wonderful things are contingent upon residents. And even the man who is in charge of the plan, I tell you, boy, I can't tell you how big it gonna be. I can't tell you how much people gonna ultimately be here. I just living in hopes. I'm a hopeful guy. And I feel like this is part of what is concerning to a lot of divisions and petitions. The fact that the guarantees are not there. And even if we had gone on the path of a technology park, some kind of manufacturing, it wouldn't, the guarantees would not have been there, but we would have been at least producing a product. Something we would have been producing. But I do not think that there's much production in tourism, and that's my issue.
Right? That's where the first zone 4, call it, you can call it that like that, will be. But even that zone is split up into neighborhoods, right? A neighborhood is can be hotel branded, it can be just private. We were definitely in advanced discussions with several hotel brands, very, very good, luxurious brands. We made it very far. They're very interested. I can't disclose those names yet because we also need to have some guarantees and agreements signed. But
imagine the developer is saying he need guarantees, he need agreements signed. On the other end of the stick, what type of guarantees should we be looking for? And I'm talking about absolute 100% this is gonna happen. Is it a homes condo sharing association? I think that everybody has been kind of confused about that aspect. But I would say that is closer to what you're talking about. It's basically a homeowners association. Hearing to force the government hand, definitely. But back to the guarantees. If he's saying that they need guarantees before that they could move forward, what are the minimum guarantees that should be demanded by the general public if they are gonna say, you know what, Mr. Brantley, man, let we go. We're gonna give you full support. What type of guarantees beyond that should those in the authorities right now, the ministers of government, the ones who will be voting for this, what type of guarantees should they be asking for to make sure that next election they are confident that they have represented the interests of the people, and in so doing, they will continue to give them their support? Those are important questions. He need guarantees. We should need guarantees too. Ladies and gentlemen, I think I don't want to go too long, so we're gonna go for another 9 minutes, and then I'll shut it down for the evening.
Basically, the first zone will be, let's say, the first neighborhood will be around 50 villas. We will sell that neighborhood, and then in the months after that, we will start selling the next neighborhood, and that's how we will incrementally grow in zone 4. And then once that's completed, yes.
So what is the budget for the first zone with the community with the 50 villas and amenities? How much, what amount do you expect to within that time frame within the first years? So what is the budget for that? What is the budget amount? Usually there is a budget upon completion from start to finish, and then people start to move in and live within and stuff like that. So what is the budget which you say you have available for that, ready for that first zone?
You mean the funding that's required, or?
Yes, exactly. Yes. The reason I'm asking this question is
before he answer about this the amount, because let me tell you, this year the answer here, the question here is a serious question today. If y'all have anything that is pressing that you feel like you need to understand in the political arena, in the civics arena, maybe in the legal arena a little bit, these type of circumstances. If there's a video about something that is going on throughout the world and you would like me to explain what is taking place on the video or react to the video, you could reach out to Real Entertainment Network on Facebook. You could type a comment. You could reach out to me personally as well, so that I could. 'Cause as I say, I just learn from a lot of what people will tell me. They want to know something, and that make me go find out. So it's wonderful when that could happen. And if you have anything, reach out and let me know.
to make sure that the project don't need our money. Can usually have projects come here and then they tend to come to the National Bank or CBI and different areas, and then they end up with funding the projects. So that's what we're trying to understand. But as you said, it's a CBI project. So I'm still wondering if what you said.
No, we're not getting money from the CBI program, right? We're only giving money towards the CBI program. Yeah, but be very clear. We're not getting anything. We're not doing loans from banks.
Let me explain something to right. How this CBI thing work, right? If I'm selling shares in a CBI project, that money the way me get me money, eh? How the government gets money from CBI is really in two ways. They make money when the person acquires the land, because they gotta pay fees and stamp duty and them kind of thing there. So the government gets to make some money there. That is one aspect, the real estate aspect. The other aspect where the government gets to make money is the application for the CBI. No, that is the government's money. If you are somebody who does the application on behalf of somebody, a legal firm, for example, then you make money from preparing the application for them, that type of circumstance. So I hope everybody understands how the money, the different aspects of how money is made from CBI. So because something is a CBI project, once again, if I'm selling shares, if I start to build condos and I start to sell shares, and shares is simply, in this case, it would be a timeshare. So I could sell 4 timeshares, and you got people who know that they're gonna get the condo for 3 months, a year, however it is. But that money that I have sold the timeshare for, that's my money. Absolutely 100%. The government get their money, as I say, from the fees, and if there is an application for CBI, that's the government money. So because you gotta remember, everybody got to eat. One person can't eat. I guess that's where a certain law firm comes in that will handle the application. But that's why I say it's gonna be important to see which law firm handles the majority of these destiny applications. if you're gonna be one, if you're gonna be spread out. It's gonna be important to look at that.
Thanks. We have for the question maybe is more, okay, how much do you need cash-wise to be able to do the first neighborhood? It's about $50 million to do the first neighborhood of 50 villas that we need to do the cash to build, right? But
yes,
yeah, that's what we have planned. I mean that.
Okay, all right.
There's other things that come into place, not just 50 million, because the capex will be. But I mean, yeah, just what is required as an investment from investors basically is 50 million for the first neighborhood. I'm not going to go into exact details about how much everything costs, but
yes. Yeah. Upon starting the project, I know you have.
So if he's saying that this thing will get to 5,000, $50 is basically $1 million a villa. Guys, $50 million for 50 villas. $50 times. Boy, let me get my calculator here before me bust my brain. Cause this seems like an amount of $1 million. 50 multiplied by no 5,000 multiplied by 1 million. That's what I thought. So he is suggesting, ladies and gentlemen, that he's gonna spend $5 billion in some kind of currency in order to build these villas. And this is just the villas, eh? This not got nothing to do with the other amenities. This not got nothing to do with putting in the I think there's supposed to be a pier. There's supposed to be a place where there's a spa and these type of thing. This doesn't have anything to do with that. $5 billion. I mean, it would be phenomenal for me. Can they be in a long 6-mile wall surrounding the Destiny Enclave? That wouldn't be sexy. They ain't got no good views over in there, you know? That's not the sexy view part of Nevis.
To build out a town where you need people who maybe important people living in the environment. So housing, water, energy. So where the water gonna come from, where the energy gonna come from? Kind of listening in the video, as I said, there was a release yesterday with and you mentioned you'll use generators, which I don't see that being efficient enough. Water, I mean, so are you gonna tap into our source temporarily? And how long will that be?
No, the answer is no. We don't want to be any strain on Nevis, right? We're not going to use any water or power. That's definitely not the goal. What I said yesterday, because the question was asked yesterday in a Q&A, which actually was earlier. It was just a broadcast of the Q&A that happened the week before, right? But anyway, the power, what I said yesterday, the question was, okay, are you going to be a strain on Nevis in terms of power or water? And my answer was no. Of course, but to build, you need power. And I said, while we built, let's say, the first, we put batteries in place, we have a solar field, stuff like that. We need some power, but we can easily provide that with diesel for the first construction phase. But we do have a contractual requirement, and also thanks to the SSD Act, we are required to have 70% come from renewable energies, right? Of course, what I also said yesterday was this: you cannot suddenly have renewable energies overnight, right? The geothermal plant is not finished yet, so we can't use that one either. And if we do use the geothermal, Nevis comes first, right? And we're still part of Nevis, but I mean, we're not going to take anything from you, and because I really care a lot about Nevis, and I don't want to be a strain, and we will not be a strain. So we will have temporarily some diesel that we need to use to build stuff, but we will then switch to solar. And also, I'm very much into this self-sustainable neighborhood.
The fact that he's saying that they don't want to be a strain on Nevis and that they are part of Nevis, but it's already awkward. I could see how this is gonna be problematic. Ultimately, there is one single Nevis, and if you're a citizen in particular, that should come along with some kind of rights to be in Nevis and to be a Nevision. So I'm just saying, I could see how this is already going to be um, an issue. To pay 30%, we can't afford.
Which means every house will have solar panel roofs and solar panels. Much as we can, we will even cover the roads with solar panels. We will have battery banks. So we're hoping that that will be enough to be self-sustaining for every neighborhood. So it's like an individual self-sustaining unit.
I did not see hope anywhere in the SSZ legislation. I do not feel like we are supposed to be hoping that any of these things are gonna go how he is saying. There needs to be, and I think somebody was asked this question: how are we gonna verify that 70% of the energy is coming from renewable sources? Separate but equal, yeah, boy. And it now I hearing him say that his sources of solar energy are going to be enough. I don't feel like hope is something that we should be relying on, and this is when I come back to saying again, what are the guarantees we should be looking for? What is acceptable in this particular circumstance?
In its own, the water will also be similarly generated. We won't take from the existing water supply. We will make sure we use rainwater, and there's like the whole plan, which will also was already made public, but will be made completely public soon. Done by WSP, where and other firms that basically show we will basically the calculations they made is they concluded that the rainwater and everything that we can collect together with pooling that into what do you call it, like ponds. And it's that's probably the wrong word, but we have some water reservoirs, right? And that will be enough to supply the whole area of Destiny with water. And like I also said yesterday, if we and hopefully when we do have more supply than we need, we would be happy to also supply that back towards Nevis. So you can also.
You see, this is why listen, he is saying that they're gonna have so much water on 1/6 of Nevis that they're gonna be able to come back and sell water to the rest of the Nevis. Ladies and gentlemen, with the amount of people that we have in Nevis now, there are certain times of the year, and we approaching it right now, where water does get kind of scarce. The water table is simply we are not producing, we are not getting enough rainwater, and I wanted to speak to somebody about this, and maybe I could get them on, but our amount of water that we get in is not enough to support who we got now. And not only that, we have massive projects. He's gonna be cloud seeding now. But I said, what is beneath the ground under those acreage, no man can't run water underneath it. But we got geothermal, which is gonna require massive amounts of water. And he's saying that he's gonna produce produce enough water over another area that to sell back to the rest of Nevis. It does not sound likely. These are certain things where I wish the gentleman who went to the town hall meeting, who was run by both opposition and the party in power, the Hispanic gentleman had the opportunity to speak. Maybe he plans to house cisterns for rainfall. But this is what I'm saying. I listen. I don't see no amount of cistern that is gonna be able to do what he suggests. But I'm willing to hear from somebody who is inclined in that field and to hear what they would have to say about the amount of rainfall that we just be getting and the possibility for it to be supported. But I don't think it's viable, particularly not in the long run, because the overall trends are showing that we are getting less and not more water.
Enjoy that, and we won't do that with like massive profits. We will do that.
Yes.
At
Well,
cost
well,
price.
well, we're speaking on water. Well, we're speaking on water because and the video that was shown when it with the premiere video of Destiny, with all going all through the villas and stuff like that. Those lakes in front of us. What are those swimming pools? Are lakes actually running through the villas and build? Those are lakes, is it?
The villa itself, the villas, I don't know which one you talk about, but the villas have pools, right? Of course, most villas have pools, but we have
Yes.
lakes in between.
Tanya, that what make me say we coming up to the season when the water does get scarce. No, to be fair, I have not been in Nevis from since the desalination plant has come online. So I'm not necessarily certain what effect that has had. But it's still a massive commitment. Gigi, that's the that's listen, I saw it too, I saw it in the image. I was like, what is it? And he said lakes. Nevis is gonna have lakes. That is a massive commitment to water. I would love to see it, by the way, but it's simply a massive commitment. Me don't know if I remember, I don't know where the plant there. Me don't know if I remember, Pan Hill. He named Pan Hill for a reason. And from what me see in the last like decades, certainly, he not gonna pan up there no more. For instance, them man surround the pan with concrete, he not gonna pan no more. It's just hill now. Hilltop what good right now. Hilltop is accurate to describe what's going on there. They shouldn't call it Pan Hill no more. They should just say hill. The hill. And lay it steady.
And those lakes are also
yes, that's what I meant. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, the
absolutely.
lakes. So the lakes, as you realize, water is really something precious around here. So where are those water going to come from to fill those lakes and stuff like that? How are we going to get all those water? And also, remember the water one, eh? And I'll give you one. You go ahead, answer that one there.
Yeah,
where the water going to come from for the lakes?
Through rainwater collection, right? That's the calculations they did, and I will double check all of that. But they said normally it's possible from just the water from like rainwater collecting.
Who said that?
The engineers.
Okay, all right.
Listen, I gonna end it right there tonight, and we're gonna come back and we're gonna continue this. As I tell I had already known that this wasn't gonna end. I apologize to everybody for me shiny big forehead. Anytime I go bend down to read the comments, I don't get word from my wife about my big shiny forehead. So I apologize to everybody who had to endure that. You need water for those pools. Ginger, come. I know, honey. I know. He needs water for those pools. They will have to drain those pools every couple of weeks to clean and refill them. They need water for gardening, cooking, and showering. What we have seen, and I think at this point in time, I'm gonna go the opposite from how I hear people talking about divisions and then stupid. No, 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 no. I feel like divisions have seen and have been sold many stories. Yeah, man. I think we have seen many stories. We have been promised many things, and we have been disappointed enough now to know better. And I feel like some of the skepticism we have is because we are able throughout all of them times to look at the overall thing that is being promised and to say whether or not we could see that coming to light. He has already said that this project, at the very least, supposed to cost $5 billion. We have inside that the $5 million does not cover the solar panels, does not cover the lakes that he got build, none of these things. This is just so Ginger, you go take it easy, you know. All of this is just for solar panels. Let me finish up and do some housekeeping. As I said, we're gonna come back and get the question. You get the 30 easy can me tell check me on. No. Well, me not get, but to be fair, I have been skeptical. So me not sign up as yet. I want to remind everybody that tomorrow is gonna be the topics, and Friday is gonna be everything agriculture. So I hope you tune into those shows and participate with those shows. Send me the down for me. You get Ginger, not go with nobody. You're gonna have to ask Daddy about that. Ginger, not studying nobody else but me. But it's my gift and my curse. I will encourage everybody once again, if you have any video, it could be a circumstance even that you need a little explanation, and please feel free to reach out and let us know. Can't well do it. Feel free to reach out and let us know that you think that we should assess a particular video. If there is a issue affecting you and you wanna know what could be done, what could be effective strategies, feel free to reach out, and hopefully I could get back to you with something that is beneficial and that is uplifting to what you are trying to do. I went overboard tonight, but that was because I come late too. So I can't even bear case on my boy. It's rough in the street right now, for real. But anyway, ladies and gentlemen, have a good night, and I will see y'all next week. And I will do a continuation of this, and also other videos that are pertinent to what going on. I don't know. I would assume that Venezuela is still gonna be what it is, but there may be other things that we have to follow. Premier press conference for 2006, I can say that. So Tanya, you want me to do the press conference them live? If y'all would like the press conference, would like me to do the press conferences live, that indicate that, and I will certainly try to get on that, and we will be able to slow it down and tell you, well, this is what he really mean after he has said a pile of words. I would also like to follow NRP events as well. So if y'all have any of those that y'all would like me to follow, let me know. Yeah, that's the only thing you could do. Calm down, you know? Ginger, Ginger, Ginger. You see yourself on camera, no? Anyway. So everybody, have a good evening. And I'm gonna see you. I'm gonna see you. Oh, Ginger.